Well, back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, so joining us to weigh in on what you just watched, we've got Usman Alhaji, who is the secretary to the Kano state government, joining us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, and thank you for, I beg your pardon, studios in Kano. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, there's been a lot of reactions concerning that particular meeting by northern leaders. Of course, expected there will be mixed reactions concerning almost any issue these days, as it were. But haven't those who think that, wait a minute, are they on the same page with youths in the country? For instance, we reported this morning, as we did review some of the dailies, indicate that Arewa youths kick against restriction of social media. Does that suggest that well, the thinking of the youths and the leaders kind of differ on what happened in the last couple of weeks?
Well, let me start by saying good morning, everyone. You heard really what some of the leaders who attended the meeting said, and some of the issues that were considered. In the first place, this, of course, is not the first time the leaders in the north got together and look at the security situation. Of course, the north has experienced a number and for quite some time, a lot of insecurity in different forms, but I believe the last Stop SARS demonstration was perhaps a louder wake-up call for all of us. We thank God that a lot of the states in the north were spared, you know, the wrath, probably the worst of the demonstrations, and that has really given us the leeway to know what was the who were the main players, and it turned out, of course, to be the youth. And that is why I think the focus of the discussion and looking at how best to ensure this doesn't happen again, and especially it doesn't go, you know, worse than what we have witnessed. A lot of discussions were centered on the issue of youth, how to engage them, how to make sure they are gainfully employed. I am fully aware that because of the insurgency, this idea has already, you know, been adopted by many of the states in the north, particularly the one I know most and the best is my state, Kano. And I know that a lot of engagement of the youth had already, you know, taken place. We had done a lot of empowerment, I think, within the last 2-3 years. Over 1 million young men and women in Kano State were engaged in one form of empowerment or another, sometimes even training. Some were even sponsored to go to the PAN in Kaduna, where they make Peugeot automobile, where they learned to become mechanics in various ways, painters and so on. And coming back from that training, the government created a garage, you know, repair garage for them, putting all the disciplines together and form one kind of garage or another. Of course, in the state, as I said, there is what we established, the integrated skill acquisition center, which was completed by the state government, you know, expanding a lot of funds, over, I think, 3 billion to establish it, and it is now named Aliko Dangote skill acquisition center with about 20 different skills to be learned by our young men and women so that they can be engaged and be gainfully used instead of allowing them with little or no options but to fall prey to such demonstrations which really does nobody any good.
Okay, but some of the narratives out there as published and read, even the ones we looked at this morning, they suggest that it appears as though there's a huge thinking, perhaps in some parts of the north, that they don't seem to understand the kind of experience that those who were protesting about SARS went through. And when they then saw it as politically motivated, many thought that that might have been off the mark. Could you explain the thinking behind that sort of narrative, which some in South think that some up north actually thought that the protest was politically motivated and not actually to address the brutality meted out to them by the defunct SARS?
Well, let me begin by honestly saying, when this matter, started, our effort in Kano was swift and quick. We summoned the leaders of various groups living in Kano, leaders, of community, and we said, and after discussing, you may say that we discovered many of our youth don't even know what is SARS at that time, because probably, I don't know, the operations have not been perhaps as bad as it is probably elsewhere. I'm talking now about Kano, not northern states, but I know that in Kano we didn't have a lot of incidents that about the cruelty or of SARS. So for our young men, honestly, they genuinely perhaps didn't realize or appreciate what the other people in other states and other parts of Nigeria are saying or are doing. Probably that might have been the reason why, Kano State and a lot of perhaps other northern states were spared of this. Now, the issue now becomes when it is concentrated, on a particular part of the country, and then the insinuation, what is the main cause, the main reason. So on one hand, they don't have a lot of experience to build on or to rely upon, and therefore join. And on the other, they get this feeling that, well, maybe there may be some ulterior motives behind this demonstration. Of course, we know how destructive it can be. And in Kano in particular, I know day in, day out, night after night, we had meeting with all the segments of society, businessmen, particularly young men. Initially, the morning, the demonstration started, we invited all the youth leaders in Sabongari and all other parts of Kano State. We said to them with the governor, chairing, and we spoke as usual, called on them to appreciate that destruction doesn't help. These are properties, belonging to people and to the people of the state, and on and on. And then
pardon me to jump in. Before the destruction of property, when the protest started, everybody saw that there wasn't any of such that went on. So if there were those who didn't understand it, because I like to believe, I mean, I don't think it was only in Kano that people didn't understand the protest. There were even some in the South who didn't understand the protest, but they didn't organize or get people to protest saying, we want SARS. So what a neutral person would have thought to see is that if people didn't understand, they should find out why is this going on, as opposed to, because the images we saw that came through from Kano was that there were a group of people who protested saying, we want SARS, and then the governor received them, and that suggested as though it was sponsored crowd, because yesterday one of our guests did actually say that those crowds were sponsored. So many thought, should that have happened, or should they have said, okay, look, what is the problem here? If it's really about police brutality, then it should be addressed, as opposed to saying group of people who, if they didn't understand, why would you then say we want SARS?
Let me correct this, because I was there.
Okay.
I was there when the youth came, and I was there when the governor, Dr. Abdullah Umar Ganduji, addressed them. I heard what they said. So I'm not talking from hearsay. I'm talking from, eyewitness. When these young men, you'll be surprised, a lot of them, of course, from various institutions, leaders, of various youth organizations. We were then in a council meeting when the Commissioner of Youth and Sports informed His Excellency and the council meeting that he was in contact with some young men that want to come and present their position to His Excellency. And when they came, what they said, because they spoke first, they said, yes, they know that something can be wrong with the SARS, but the issue of proscribing them and dealing with no police that will take care of that aspect where which SARS deals with, they said no. This country, everybody needs security. Without police force, nobody can exist, nobody can, perform their legitimate businesses, and they suggested that there should be reform, and they are not, they are not supporting the disbandment of SARS, but to be reformed. And we all know that is quite correct. There is no nation, no country, no society really can exist and live peacefully without someone that makes sure everybody lives peacefully. So the police do that. That's their job. And then, of course, in response, His Excellency appreciated them. He said, well, you understand what it is, of course, to be safe and go about your daily businesses, unharassed and unhindered. So he appreciated what they did and requested them to be peaceful and to make sure that they don't go on rampage, they don't do anything that would destabilize the state. You know that Kano State, we thank God, is perhaps one of, if not the most peaceful state in the country, and of course the most populated, which is, another contradiction. Where there are too many people, you are likely to have a lot of youth, restiveness and lack of peace. But through efforts and deliberate, steps taken by the government, we thank God Kano State today is adjudged the most peaceful state. That's what happened. They were not against putting the police in the right position to do their job. They are only saying that, no, don't disband them and then have nothing in their place.
Okay. Well, Alhaji, perhaps, I don't know if the family of Saifullah, a 17-year-old, in Kano who died in police custody would say the same thing that you're saying now, because it's as a result of his death in police custody that violence, according to the Amnesty International, broke around Kofa Mata area. And as a result of that, the protesters barricaded the main road, Kofa Mata Road, and set tires on fire and chanting songs calling for an end to police brutality in Kano. So those who say that some protesters, some pro-SARS people, just as you said, that came to the governor were paid, might have good reason to say that. Because from this report, it is clear that indeed there were people in Kano who were not in support of SARS. So how do you address that end as well, where in case, in actual fact, there are people in Kano who have also suffered, badly in the hands of police, especially SARS in this case?
Well, I'm not I'm not in any way saying that people or anybody in Kano had not had any brush with SARS before. In fact, we are also preparing to set up a commission of inquiry to look at all of this, and the facts will be there. And if as anybody says, the brutality in Kano is there, it will be there on the table. But let me also say that, of course, in Kano, we have a standard of holding our state security meetings monthly, which goes a long way towards stabilizing and ensuring peace in Kano. We don't wait until an issue comes up before we call for security meeting. Every month we have a security meeting. We have also other structures on the security arrangement.
Just one moment. On that, since these security meetings hold monthly, were there hitherto any reports of police brutality in Kano that the government did or did not address before these NSAS protests broke?
Well, you see, a security meeting really will not be a venue where these things will be discussed. That is why we thought the establishment of the committee to look at all of these possible brutality, as you. But
are you aware? Are you aware of any such cases arising among the police and the citizens? Because I would expect, or rather, I would imagine that there were police community relations committees in Kano as well that may have brought these things to the fore. Because if those were there and those reports were brought to the attention of the chief security officer of the state in the person of the governor, someone like you would be aware and those issues wouldn't have degenerated so badly.
Well, let me quickly really repeat what His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, just said, at the end of that meeting, that we agree, we appreciate the fact that in every group of people, there are some bad ones, and we are not contesting the fact that within the police force, whether it's SARS or any other, you can have few bad eggs. You can have bad eggs, and that does not really say that each and every one of them is bad. Let me quickly, you spoke about a young man whom you said died in Kano. That's why I started with the issue of security meeting. I was going to say on that particular, days of the protest, we held continuous security, state security meeting, and in the meeting we were briefed about really what happened about the young man. The police, the commissioner of police clearly told us what happened, and because yes, you are right, there were some people who wanted really to do the demonstration. There are those who say no, we don't want a demonstration because it can cause mayhem in Kano, and there was some little clash between one group and the other in Kano. If anything, that was the issue issue about burning tires and so on. But let me quickly tell you that when we put our security network, in action, we were able to call to government house to summon to receive those who confess to be the leaders of the End SARS protest in Kano State, and I can tell you it's a mixture. One of the I think 7, 8 of the leaders, young men, is from Kano. That is a fact. But there are 3 others that say they were from Imo State. Another 2, I think, from Anambra. And we sat with them, with the governor, and we spoke. Look, in Kano, this is what we have, this is what we want. And these young men accepted and said, well, we promise you from now on, this End SARS protest will end in Kano. And that is exactly what happened. So when you went back, when I go back to what you said initially about thinking of some political motive and so on, probably, because when you look at the way, in Kano we try to deal with the matter, most of the people that were there to help, to assist, to stop the End SARS demonstration in Kano are mostly leaders. There is Sarki Myth, the chief of Igbo, the chief of Yorubas, Edo, and a number of the community leaders who were summoned, and the governor quickly formed what we call peace committee, and we have these young men join these leaders, and that was how we were able to overcome it.
All right, Alajusman, we'll come back to just get your concluding thoughts about 1 or 2 matters in just a moment. Join us again. All right, welcome back. So, Alajusman, could you tell us, what is Kano State government's thinking about the question of state police?
Well, I think, let me repeat what, again, the governor, His Excellency, the governor of Kaduna State said. This is, of course, a national issue. It's a constitutional matter, and I'm sure when it is brought up and is being discussed, then clear views about it. But let me say that in Kano State, we are able to maintain the peace, in a very miraculous way, because, as I said, it's a very populated state with many young men and women, and that is, of course, a breeding place for crime. We are able to do that by setting up various, arrangements, elaborate, to ensure that our arrangement goes right down to the village level, and then we make sure also everybody is involved. As we agree, we feel that security matter is everybody's business. Okay, I'm coming to that, yeah.
Okay, because I mean that in part of that recommendation as well was the insecurity challenge across the country, up north as well, the challenge of Almajire. So many will wonder, maybe you'll even speak to it now, will Kano State government support state police when it's being debated?
Well, I believe this is, as I said, you are asking me, but I believe that Kano State has been working a lot, and believe me, in earnest, to establish structures that would maintain peace, in Kano State. Presently, we have the Kano State Transport Agency, the Karota, which are more or less performing a lot of the probable roles that normally police perform.
In addition to that one that you just mentioned now, they also say Kano State equally has Hisba. You have several other agencies who are performing a type of policing function or the other. So the question is, why are we going around in circles in all of this matter when everyone can clearly see that each state has one agency or outfit or the other performing some sort of policing function. Why did they then address it that this state police question should be debated once and for all?
Well, what you are asking me, really, as I said, is a state matter. For me to just make the statement and say that Kano State will take police or will not take state police, you see, the issue, we are not there yet. But I am telling you why, excuse me, why I feel it will not be a new or strange thing to Kano State. And that's why I started telling you about the Karota, about other community policing arrangement we have, where all our traditional rulers are involved, and the reporting system has already been established in Kano, where the local government council chairman report to me, the SSG, where the police divisional officer reports to commissioner of police and DSS to. So we have already established a system in Kano where we know every day who comes in, who goes out, who buys a land in our remotest part of the state, and so police, state policing for us is something that is going to only complement, because as I said, the decision has to be made. We have not made it yet, so for me to say we have made it, that will be in error. So I want to say that we are taking steps to ensure that Kano remains, you know, peaceful and with security. So if state police is something that adds to it, that will be a matter of decision of government, of national position, and then of course Kano State will adopt it.
All right, so as we wind down now, could you tell us, will the state support censoring social media?
Well, let me tell you, it is not even a matter of SARS, end SARS protest. Before even then, it is a fact that state government has discussed in no small detail the pros and cons of social media, and of course it is very, very prevalent and spread wide in Kano State, and we have seen, well, the good and the bad of it, and we are saying yes, there should be a reasonable, you know, level of control. I don't think it is in Kano or in Nigeria, all over the world, this is what is happening. I know many countries that regulate the activities of social media because of its adverse effect on some, you know, cases, in some aspects. So I believe, yes, we will do it to a level that will not touch, will not hinder on any freedom of expression of anybody, you know, in the state if the matter comes up. But I want to say to you that yes, the need to definitely regulate and make sure it is decently, rightly done with that. Because one right of one individual, that is the one who uses the media, stops where the right of another individual starts, who probably get maligned or whatever by the use of the media. So I think it's a balance between those who want to express themselves and who want to have justice
it might be
done
you
to
against, it might be you or the government against the youth in that in your state or in the north generally, who are the ones that use social media the most, because from what we hear in the papers, as my colleague quoted earlier, they say the youths, the Arewa youths for development and progress say that any plan to regulate or, you know, censor the social media is for them a plan to keep the North and the country under perpetual subjugation. This is what they think. If you go on, what do you think the repercussion will be?
Well, I don't know whether someone is in a position to really tell us what is good for us, what is not bad, what is bad for us, except ourselves. I know that this government under Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje has engaged virtually every sector of our society, and that is why at any given time, if the government invites anybody, which has not been, the same, in the past years, today the people are carried along, they respect, the government, they accept invitations. We've been engaging these young men. You will be surprised to know that many of these young men are the architects of this statement I made, that yes, everyone has a right, the media people, the social media people have their right, and also the person who doesn't use it or who is affected by it also has a right. So I'm not talking from only government views or side, I'm talking about the engagement we had with these young men and the people of Kano State who believe that yes, there should be some level of decency, some level of ensuring everybody, has his own interest and right protected. I think that's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, I don't know how brief you can make this, but I would really love it if you could make it brief. A number of issues as far as insecurity is concerned, many have attributed to unemployment and poverty. And according to a report in the Geographies of Poverty in Kano State, the report says that Kano is that 98% of households in Kano North falls below poverty line, while only 97.1% in the Kano South and 86.9% in Kano Central fall below the poverty threshold. In this light, what is government doing to ensure that insecurity is tackled, especially from the angle of taking people out of poverty?
Well, let me quickly say that I'm sure you may be aware recently we declared free and compulsory education for all people with disability, Almajiris, and every child in Kano State now is entitled to have free education, primary and secondary. That's one way of trying to mitigate. Secondly, I just told you about the level of empowerment that is going on in Kano State relentlessly, on virtually all directions. We can see, I think the truth is there on the ground. If there is this pressure on the young men, their brains bubble, probably they will not have been that peaceful. Like I said, the peace we are enjoying in Kano State is not by accident, it's a deliberate steps and actions taken by the state government, and I can beat my chest to say that in the history of Kano State, there has not been another 4 or 5 years when the state saw tremendous development and progress in virtually all directions. Just this year, we've declared, education and health as our priority. Last year in our budget, it was agriculture and youth empowerment. So we are taking every possible step to ensure that Kano State remains peaceful.
All right, Usman Alhaji, Secretary to the Kano State Government, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, we will talk about social media again when we come back in just a moment.